Getting bad news at the doctor's office may feel like your worst nightmare. For patients of Dr. Farid Fata, bad news was as common as the cold. Fata ran several cancer clinics in the Detroit area and seemingly diagnosed everyone that walked through the door with cancer. However, it was all part of an elaborate scheme to scam insurance companies by prescribing treatments his patients did not need. The prosecuting attorney called him worse than Bernie Madoff, and the fallout of his scam will have lasting effects on everyone involved. Fata was born in Lebanon in 1965 and obtained his medical degree in 1992. After immigrating to the United States, he served his residency at a New York medical center from 1993 to 1996. He went on to practice hematology-oncology at a Manhattan cancer center until 1999. Once finished, he became an attending physician at a Pennsylvania medical center between 2000 and 2003. Every step of his medical journey brought him closer to Michigan, where he'd eventually plant his flag, opening his own cancer center called Michigan Hematology Oncology, or MHO, in Rochester Hills, Michigan. MHO led to several more businesses, labs, and medical centers, expanding his practice and treatment methods. The promising physician had a knack for blood cancer and was on track to becoming a very successful doctor. Most regarded him as the go-to cancer doctor in Michigan. He cared for nearly 1,700 people across 6 different clinics in Detroit. His method of choice was to pump large amounts of chemo drugs into his patients, which was considered very aggressive by other doctors. He dubbed this concept the European protocol. However, his track record appeared to speak for itself, so nobody raised any red flags, at least not in the beginning. Dr. Fata was on top of the world, obtaining a large paycheck he routinely put back into his oncology centers. He decorated his waiting rooms with artwork so large that it reached his domed ceilings. A grand piano greeted patients in the waiting room as well. He wanted everyone to know how wealthy and successful he was. Should that have been enough of a red flag? How many cancer doctors do you see flaunting their wealth like that? In 2007, Maggie Dorsey fell victim to cancer. At least that's what Dr. Fata told her. He prescribed his aggressive European treatment and kept Maggie on chemo for 7 months. Chemo she did not need. Chemo that had irreversible side effects on her body. Maggie sought a second and third option, and both deduced that Dr. Fata had misdiagnosed her. In a twist of irony, Fata was still sending her $1,000 treatment bills, for the cancer she did not have. The damage was done by the time she sued Fata for malpractice. The lawsuit was settled out of court. More importantly, it was settled out of the media. In 2010, an oncology nurse named Angela Swentak interviewed at MHO. During her brief time there, she witnessed practices she knew in her heart were wrong. She concluded that Dr. Fata was pumping extra doses of medication into his patients when they didn't need it. He would then bill the insurance agencies for the unnecessary treatment, effectively turning his patients into cash cows. Swentak tried to go to the authorities with her claims, but nothing ever came of it. She was told there was no plausible reason to investigate Dr. Fata. For all they knew, he was performing miracles at MHO. Some would say that Fata was a control freak when it came to his patients. He didn't want any other doctors interacting with or treating them, and would go so far as to bug his business with microphones and cameras, keeping an eye on what happened under his roof. His employees shook off the notion as strange, thinking it was just another one of his controlling quirks coming out. However, Fata and his wife had full control over the cameras, and would use them to keep certain things from being said or done to his cash cow patients. People often speculate why Fata would go to such lengths to steal millions of dollars in insurance fraud. Was he in debt from his various glamorous lifestyles? Had all of his expenses started to catch up with him when new practices entered the area? Or was he just being greedy and taking in as much money as he possibly could, hoping to get richer off the poor patients he treated? Regardless, this self-destructive path for power and wealth is what led him to 45 years in federal prison. A life sentence dangled over his head, and Fata's lawyer told him to plead guilty to avoid dying in prison. Fata did as told, but instead of getting the expected plea deal of 20 years, the judge slapped him with a 45-year sentence. He maintains his innocence to this day, telling others he was duped into taking the guilty plea and that he wanted to go to trial. Was his entire confession a failed plot to get a lesser sentence, or is this doctor as innocent as he claims? Monica FLAGG was a home health care worker who got her blood work and physicals done annually to ensure she was in tip-top shape. However, when this year's blood work came back, something didn't seem right. Monica's physician believed cancer might have been involved. She was told to seek out the best cancer doctor in the area, leading her into the hands of Dr. Fata. Monica was just like any other of Fata's patients. She was a healthy older woman who enjoyed gardening and traveling with her husband. She was in great shape, which is why Fata's cancer diagnosis was so shocking. Monica had already lost 2 loved ones to cancer. She knew how horrible chemo was, and according to Dr. Fata, she'd be on chemo for the rest of her life. Before beginning treatment, she and her husband took a week-long Costa Rican vacation. According to them, it was fabulous. Upon their return, Monica began her first round of chemo. Weakened and saddened by the experience, she and her husband sat out on their back porch and enjoyed the sun, attempting to ignore everything else going on. When it started to rain, Monica ran inside to close the windows. She tripped over the suitcase she left out from the Costa Rica trip and broke her leg in 2 places. While it seems like Monica's life couldn't get any worse, breaking her leg might be the best thing that could have happened to her. Dr. Fata was away on vacation, so Monica fell into the hands of Dr. MAUNGLAY. Dr. MAUNGLAY looked over her charts and knew she did not have cancer. Nothing made sense about Dr. Fata's original diagnosis. Little did they know how deep the rabbit hole went. Dr. MAUNGLAY worked with Dr. Fata, although he disagreed with how Fata went about his procedures and found him extremely controlling. While he was away, MAUNGLAY ended up caring for Monica. As he looked at her chart, he came to the shocking conclusion that she didn't actually have cancer. He told Monica as soon as he could. She was elated to hear the words, "Monica, you don't have cancer." MAUNGLAY decided to do some digging and launched an investigation of his own. He found old reports and case files on past patients of Dr. Fata. All of them were diagnosed with cancer, even though none of them actually had it. His investigation led him to MHO office manager George Caradichet, who didn't believe MAUNGLAY's accusations. His investigation uncovered Fata's misuse of melanoma and the existence of a protein found in Monica's blood. Dr. Fata used the elevated M protein found in Monica's blood as a smokescreen of sorts. The protein caused a precancerous yet treatable disease in the bone marrow, which he used to justify increases in treatment and cost by just saying, "She has cancer." Each treatment cost Monica's insurance company over $4,000. Dr. Fata's devious plot had finally been uncovered. MAUNGLAY was an intelligent doctor trying to step out of Dr. Fata's door and pursue other paths. When he uncovered the truth, he knew he had to share it with anyone who would listen. The investigation was handed over to Caradichet for further study after MAUNGLAY left MHO. Caradichet, still a skeptic, began asking questions around the office. He kept coming to the same conclusion, that Dr. Fata was up to no good. Several qualified staff members had already left because they disagreed with Fata's methods. In the end, where there's smoke, there's fire. Or rather, where there are fake cancer diagnoses, there's a multi-million-dollar insurance scam. Caradichet turned everything over to the FBI, and the first person they wanted to talk to was Dr. MAUNGLAY. MAUNGLAY guided them over several different charts and files, all about the overdosage of chemo drugs and patient records that Fata had altered. They went over Monica's case specifically since it was the smoking gun. He didn't realize that Fata would be arrested the very next day. The day of the trial finally arrived and patients filled the courtroom with stories and testaments against Fata. They all wanted him behind bars for the rest of his life. Fata was left to sit and sweat as dozens of people spoke against him. The prosecution fought for life in prison. Pumping and filling people with unnecessary drugs was inhumane, not to mention all the money he managed to scam off the top. They weren't going to rest until he was stuck in federal prison for the rest of his life. Many wanted him to die behind bars. Maggie Dorsey appeared in court to tell her heartbreaking story about Dr. Fata and how his evil scheme ruined the rest of her life. She couldn't even brush her daughter's hair anymore, let alone her own. His wife and children were allowed to leave the country, and most of Fata's property and possessions were auctioned off or liquidated, leaving the doctor who wanted everything with nothing. Everything he'd worked so hard and stole so much for was crumbling right at his feet. As mentioned, he pled guilty, believing it would net him a shorter sentence. Instead, he was given 45 years in prison. Even though it wasn't technically life in prison, Fata would not be a free man until 2051, when he is 86 years old. The prosecutor described Fata as one of the most egregious fraudsters in the history of our country, claiming he was worse than Bernie Madoff. Fata pled guilty to 13 healthcare fraud charges, 1 count of conspiracy to pay and receive kickbacks, and 2 counts of money laundering. Fata's crimes had earned him $34 million in insurance money, a crime undoubtedly worthy of a lifetime behind bars. Fata has maintained his innocence since his conviction. He asked the judge to throw out his guilty plea, citing lousy advice from his lawyer. He believes that had he gone to trial, he would have had the support of a medical professor from the University of Pennsylvania. The judge didn't care, and his requests were denied. While COVID-19 has been a nightmare for many, Dr. Fata saw it as a potential blessing. In the wake of the pandemic, he sought compassionate release. His lawyers claim he suffers from debilitating medical conditions. COVID would be a death sentence for him. Once again, Fata's requests were denied. Click here to watch one of these next videos.